Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode number 301. Men need to be strong. Why do I say this? And I say this because all conflict eventually leads to violence. That's the way it works. That, people can have diplomacy in the world and people can talk to each other and people can actually step up to one another and actually have genuine verbal conflict. And they do. And that's the way most of the conflicts in the world work. And eventually, people walk away and nobody gets in a violent conflict. But the fact of the matter is, if we actually enter into verbal conflict about something that genuinely matters, and when I say genuinely matters, I mean the eternal soul of your family, or the eternal soul of yourself, or so on and so forth. You get the point. That you should never ever submit to diplomatic exchange on such issues. That you should stand up and do the righteous, most virtuous thing you can do and never ever submit. And eventually, like you could think about it, like most things will end with diplomatic conversation. Like, hey, I disagree with you, you disagree with me. We can yell at each other, we can scream at each other, and we can completely disagree and walk away from each other and hold our breaths and be mad. But eventually, when it really comes down to the deep and dirty of it all, nobody respects diplomatic exchange like they do violent force. And I don't want to say anybody should ever be violent, but the fact of the matter is, if somebody brings it to you and brings it to your family, that you need to accept my position or else you're going to jail, or you need to accept my position or you're going to be put to death. Because these things have happened over and over and over again in the history of mankind, where tyrannical governments, tyrannical people that want to control you, people that want to tell you what to believe, they have used violent force to try to make you submit to their will. And eventually, when you get to that point of you got diplomacy and you're conflicting, you walk away, conflict. Eventually, if it ever comes to the point of violent interaction, men need to be able to stand up for themselves and tell the other side and the other position, the non-virtuous side, no. And you have to do it. And to do such things, you can't be a weakling. You can't be a wimp. You can't be like the typical problematic Catholic male these days. And I don't want to say that Catholic men are all weak, because there's a lot of strong, hardworking dudes. But the fact of the matter is, we as Catholic men have not been asked to do combat for generations. I mean, really generations. And do we really know how to do it anymore? I don't know. But all that being said is, if you're 6'1", let's just say, and you weigh 150 pounds, is the world going to respect you like if you're 6'1" and 205 pounds or 215 pounds of muscle? It's not. And in fact, if it wants to control you, it's going to push you harder if you're 150 pounds than if you're 215 pounds. Because 215 pounds of muscle at 6'1", that's a formidable dude. Like, that's somebody that can actually tell you, no, I'm not going to do it, and don't even try. Because Catholic men need to be able to stick to their virtues, and they do not need to submit to anybody on the positions of virtue, because you need to submit to the will of God, and you do not need to submit to secular human thought or somebody that wants to control you. Something to think about. And so this brings me to the Knights of the Middle Ages, these knights that we see on movies. Were they just typical dudes that went out and served the king? No, they weren't. These were dudes that were athletic and strong, and they trained and they had armor on, and they consecrated themselves to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And their entire job was to carry virtue into society and to protect the weak against the strong, to protect the weak against the aggressors. And that's the way all Catholic men should strive to be. And I guess I want to say this. If you're hearing this video and you don't think you can do that, well, it's time to actually take that into action. It's time for you to go hit a gym. And I don't really have the workout routines for you. I don't. But you need to be eating big. You need to eat a lot of food. And you need to lift big. You need to lift a lot of weight. You need to actually go to a gym and try to figure out how to be bigger and stronger than the competition. Meaning, you're virtuous. Who's the competition? The non-virtuous. You actually have to be bigger and stronger than the non-virtuous. Because one day, if you're genuinely virtuous, you're going to come in conflict with these people. And your goal is to never back down from them. And really, honestly, let's say a man 6'8" and 315 pounds of muscle. Is a non-virtuous person, secular person, when he tells you no, are they going to say, hey, let's do combat? No, they're not going to do that. They're going to actually submit and run away. And so all Catholic men, I'm calling upon you, You have to go to the gym, you have to lift big, you have to eat big, and you have to become stronger. You have to push your body to the point where you don't think you can go any further and then go further. That's what you have to do. You have to become bigger, you have to become stronger, you have to become more capable. And the world, honestly, if all virtuous people did this, we'd have no problems in society. The problem is most Catholic men are weenies. Like they don't step up, and they don't do the hard thing, and they don't lift weights, and they don't work out, and they don't step up and have conflict. If virtuous men stepped up, they did conflict, but they also had the physical being to actually back up what they said, the world would be a better place. And so, well, anyway, I'm not sitting here thinking that you need to dedicate your life to being stronger. You don't. But what you do need to do is you have to be healthy, and you have to be capable, and you have to be competent, and you have to be strong, and not just physically, but mentally, and you have to have a good prayer life and all the other stuff. But the biggest problem I see with good Catholic men these days, when I say Catholic men, it's people that live the sacramental life of the church. They understand virtue, they understand vice, and they understand, they understand what the sacraments are. They tend to be physically weak. And so this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Please like or subscribe, get the Mass, pray the daily rosary, and do live a sacramental life. And oh, by the way, I'm not kidding about this. If this did touch a nerve with you, which I bet you most of the guys listening to this video, it did, you have to get stronger. Now it's time to develop a plan. If you have any questions, call me if you know who I am. You can even comment on the section below, and I'll tell you. So here's some suggestions. You have to do heavy squats twice a week. You have to do deadlifts once a week. You have to do bench presses once a week. Do pull-ups, almost every single day. And you have to get bigger, and you have to get stronger. So anyway, God bless. Take care. Have a good night.